Hey, mamas, and welcome back to another episode of the Modern Moms Club podcast. I have such an amazing guest today for you guys. I'm so excited because so many of you mamas come to me and you say, I'm a mom, I'm working from home, but I need to find my passion again. I need to find what makes me happy and I want to, make some money. So our guest today, I have Lauren Tickner. She is coming in to give us some juicy information on really how, to find yourself in business and give mama some tips on how she can build her own brand. But we're going to dive into like a whole bunch of stuff today. So Lauren, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here to share some wisdom with all of your listeners. And now I do just have to say for everyone listening, I'm not a mom, but I am going to come at this from the perspective of adding value to you, bearing in mind that you have kids at home. Because just to, I guess, get into this podcast episode, I have a brother who's actually disabled. And then my mom obviously was out of work for a long time. So she went through a whole entire, many years of just essentially losing herself, not having a passion or anything. So I can see the result of a mom not having the passion and not having anything to feel like they have any purpose other than raising a kid. So I guess I can come at it from that perspective as well, despite the fact that I don't have my own kids, but I do want kids in the future. So I'm definitely going to have to tune into your podcast to get all the other tips about raising kids and just, being an amazing mom. So what you're awesome.
I think it's awesome too, because, so many moms that I work with one-on-one when I do, my coaching or my mastermind, they're like, I'm a mom, but I want more. And it's fine to like, if you're just in mom mode and you're doing that all the time and you're raising your family and you're taking care of your husband and your kids, that's amazing. And it's also amazing to want to have your own thing and to not feel guilty about wanting your own thing. Being able to go from either angle, it's totally amazing. And you just need to find what is right for you. But today we're going to talk about personal branding as a mom. And this is your expertise. So I can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And I think especially when you are a mom, that in itself is like an awesome niche to begin with. So you have this thing. And so that gives you an easy option in order to start building out your personal brand, which you have obviously done extremely well already. So
Thank you. There's just so much content. I feel like motherhood, it's this balance of like keeping everything together and then not losing your mind and finding the humor in everything.
Well, I have all of that to come, but yeah, it's cool because I guess it's like every niche can be pretty broad at the same time. So I guess it comes down to figuring out what you feel like you do best. Because obviously, like you mentioned, there are some moms out there who want to just be moms and raise their kids and be a stay-at-home mom, let's just say. Whereas there are some moms who want to build a kick-ass career. They want to climb their way up the ladder and do super well in business. And then maybe there are some moms as well who want to build their own business and be a stay-at-home mom while having a business at the same time. So there are so many different options. And so, as you said, it's finding out what works best for you and figuring out how to position yourself if you're someone who does want to build your own thing, build your own brand, and do the whole social media thing.
Yes. And I wanted to get into a little bit because before we started recording this, we were kind of getting into what your background was, but we were like, stop. Let's do it for the podcast. So I want to get into that now and just give the ladies a little bit of background on you and how you got started in this.
Yeah. So it's hilarious. Like I probably started when I was like just a little bit older than some people's kids. Like I started when I was really young. So when it comes to how I actually started building my business, I didn't ever intend to have a business. So I basically I'm 22 right now, but I grew up in like the social media age where you had to be 13 to create a Facebook profile, but you used a fake age because you were too young and you were super So I basically, what happened was, long story short, I lost weight in a really unhealthy way. So I was pretty overweight as a kid. Like I wasn't like huge, but I was unhealthily overweight. And it just made me feel really insecure because all of my friends were like skinny, pretty, and they were like getting all these guys, and I would always just feel like a little bit left out. And so long story short, I lost weight in a really unhealthy way, and I got to the point where I was super thin, like not like I'm gonna die any second, but I was very, very skinny and I was unhealthy on the other end of the spectrum. And so I was feeling dizzy all the time. Like I would get to the point where I would kind of stand up and, well, I couldn't last a full day at school because I would start having panic attacks.
Wow.
And so I was diagnosed with panic disorder and anxiety, not for any particular reason. Honestly, it was just because I felt dizzy. I'm a very confident person. I always really have been, but I was just insecure. And then this anxiety was triggered by lack of calories. So I took to Google and I was like, okay, I need to gain weight in a healthy way. I can't live like this because I've always wanted to be someone who wants to be successful in whatever I do. And so I was like, I'm not going to be successful and be kick-ass in business if I'm having panic attacks all day.
Yep.
So I Googled how to gain weight in a healthy way. And like literally the one thing that kept coming up time and time again was weight training. So I basically ended up getting into weight training and fueling my body. But a new problem arose, came out for me, was that like there were no other girls my age who were into this. So I was like 16 at the time. And so basically I started an Instagram because I found all these women on Instagram who were documenting their journeys, and they had this community of people commenting on their photos. And I wanted to comment on their photos, but I knew that if I commented on their photos, then the boys in my year and the girls in my year would see that I was commenting on fitness influencers' photos, and I was embarrassed that they saw me commenting on
my gosh.
So this is like the type of thing that goes through 16-year-old heads. So if you have a kid who's a teenager right now, please be aware that they are ridiculously insecure beyond belief, and the most stupid things will be making them feel insecure.
Yeah, but even if you think back, like if I think back when I was 16, I remember going through the same thing. I was on the opposite end. I was really skinny and awkward looking. Like, you know what I mean? I had the braces, I had the glass. Actually, I think I had just gotten contacts when I was 16, but still it's like braces and glasses. I don't know. It was just like this little twig, and no boobs. I mean, I was like, oh my God, all my friends, same thing. All the guys are paying attention to them because they've got boobs and they look cute. And I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's how I felt too. And I felt like I could never really speak up in conversation, or on the opposite end of it, I had to be overly loud in order to make up for my insecurities. And so the crazy thing is though, like, as I say this, I'm very fortunate that I got out of that, because I feel like this is something that so many people, it continues on into their adulthood, and they never really lose sight of the fact that when they were a kid, they were insecure and they were like the weird one out of all their friends. And so now they still feel like they're like that. And so basically, yeah, I ended up making this Instagram and building this personal brand.
As you or as someone else?
Okay. Oh yeah, good one. So, so I started my account. Obviously, I was just posting like food, like healthy recipes, essentially like high protein recipes. And my username was Fitness Life Lauren. And so then basically,
we probably all remember our first, like my first AOL like accounts, or like I don't know if you remember this, but like instant messenger. You know, when it was like, and it would like dial up and everything. Mine was Sandi 2235.
That's so random how you remember that.
So it's so funny. Like, we remember those things, you know?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I was actually really lucky with my AOL account. Like my parents made me one. So it was literally just Lauren Tickner at AOL.com. I didn't ever have to go through that embarrassing thing where you get to university and you still have your kiddie email address, which happened to tons of my friends.
Yes. And mine wasn't even bad because mine was my name and so was yours. But I know like some of my best girlfriends, it was like Sunset or like, you know, whatever it was they were into, and you're like, oh my God, you look back now and you're just like, what was like my and that wasn't even 16. That was probably like 14-year-old us, you know?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like, we just do crazy things as kids. It's just, and you think you're so funny at the time. Like, it's hilarious to you.
But everybody's doing the same thing. Yeah.
It's so funny. Oh God, all the trends that you go through. It's just hilarious. So yeah, I mean, I had this username and I was posting these recipes, and basically I kept it a secret. It was like a private account. And then pretty much what happened was, I still to this day have no idea how they found it, but all the guys in my year found the account. And then I was literally like torn down. I was
because of food posts?
Oh yeah, like because I had this, because okay, bearing in mind, right, these days it's so normal for you to post a picture of your brunch. Like, people do it even if they aren't trying to build an online business. Like, nobody did that then.
So you were so ahead of like everybody.
but I didn't even see it in that sense, because all I was doing it for was to make friends with other girls. Like that was it. That was the only drive behind it.
Think about that. You were so far ahead of your time.
Right. I know. Too far ahead that I didn't even realize the opportunities there.
Yeah, that's incredible. Connecting with other people, doing your food photos, like everything that you were doing, like we do that now. So when you were 16, and the fact that you had the like foresight, whether you knew it or not, to like be doing what you were doing, like that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because one of the biggest things for me that I realized, and this is something that I think is a massive key takeaway for everyone listening to this right now, that is going to be super, super helpful. It's like, okay, I was thinking from how I wanted things to be. So let me just make this clearer and illustrate it with an example. So when you used to scroll through Instagram, it was kind of back in the day, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, when people were all bloggers. Everyone who was using an Instagram, other than just for their friends and family, they were bloggers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that meant that their link in their bio was a call to action to go read the latest blog post. So I'd be scrolling through Instagram and I'd see a photo of like this protein brownie and I'd be like, oh my God, this looks so good. And being like classic Generation Z, I'm like, I want this recipe now. Like give me the instant gratification and give it to me now.
Yeah.
And so I would see that their caption on their photo was like, this gooey brownie tastes so good. It's hazelnuts, blah, blah, blah. But it wouldn't tell me the recipe. And I was like, oh, this is so annoying. I can't be bothered to go and click on the bio.
Right.
I just wanted the recipe there. And so I essentially created a solution to my own problem, which was not having the recipe there. So I basically started putting the recipes to these things I was making inside of my caption. But I actually took it one step further. And what I would do is like, I'd take a real like food porn photo and I'd upload it in the morning. This is back when Instagram had its old algorithm. So everything was chronological. And I would pretty much like take a photo of the food, or like maybe they didn't even have video when I first did it actually, but I took the photo of the brownie and I would like upload it and I'd say, comment me if you want the recipe.
Oh, yeah.
These people commenting, and then obviously I was going to post it anyway, whether people commented or not. But, so yeah, I basically did that. So that's like one thing to note is like you should always think about your content from the end user's perspective rather than from what's going to be the most beneficial to you. So of course, you want it to benefit you, but the most important thing is always focusing on delivering that value to your ideal follower, your ideal client or whatever, because you need to make sure that the content that you're providing to them is optimal for them, not for you. Because,
what they want.
Exactly. Yeah. Give them what they want. And that's honestly just the most fundamental thing. So I think that's how in the beginning stages I was able to build up an audience without even trying, because I was just adding the value that I would have liked to have seen. And then obviously I started doing online fitness coaching from that after so many things, but I'm not going to go into my life story now because it just rambles on. But then like after doing online fitness coaching, I just realized the possibilities of online business. So I was studying business on the UK's top business degree at the University of Bath, and I decided to just drop out of that because my business was taking off. So I felt that studying business was by no means as beneficial as actually being hands-on.
You're like, I know way more. I'm getting my own education and I'm making money.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it wasn't even that I did it like being like, oh, I know too much for this, like I'm too good to be here. It wasn't that at all. It was just like looking at it objectively here and thinking, well, I have an opportunity cost. Like anything in life, there's always a trade-off. And it's like deciding where I'm going to spend my time to get the most benefit. And I realized that I was able to, I'd still be there today. Like I would still have the rest of the year. So like I'd still have another year and a half, which is mad. And it was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
And so I'm really fortunate as well that like my parents gave me the autonomy there, because if they'd have forced me into staying in university, I just would have resented my time there, and who knows what I would have been doing. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of just a little bit of the backstory, and here we are today.
I love that. So you sound like you're so just a wise beyond your years. Like you knew at 16 years old, things that people are doing today. You see things now, like so how old were you when you started in university? 18?
Oh, so basically what happened was like in the UK here, you finish. So I'm English in case any of the listeners didn't. It's funny, people always think I'm from like Australia or America, but I don't know. Hey, so I'm not complaining though. I love the States. So basically, at 18, I finished school and I went and worked at an asset management company in London. So I was supposed to be on a 12-month contract there, and I quit the day after I got my bonus in April. So I stayed there for like 8 months in the end.
Wow.
And then after that, I had a few months off. In the time between like quitting that job, I went and got my personal training qualification so I could start doing online fitness coaching. Then I went to university at the age of 19. Yeah.
So what do you see now, right? In a world where we are now, like when you were 16 years old and you were posting your pictures and you knew to take people on this journey of, giving them the recipes that they wanted, and you had the foresight to see these things. Today, when everything is super oversaturated and there's a million Instagram models and there's a million food, this and that, all these things, like, what do you see now that people are maybe doing too much of, doing too little of? What do you feel like, even for the moms maybe that are looking to get started in this, like what would be a good place for them to start that's going to set them apart from all the other oversaturation in the market?
Yeah, no, it's an amazing question, because I think that there's a massive difference between an industry being saturated and a niche being saturated. So something that I'm really hot on and that I really think that people should focus on a lot is niching down. Now, I know niching down is and you guys say niche, so there's a lot of translation there. But so people are scared to niche down because they're like, oh, but what about all these other people who I can also help? But here's the thing, like in the beginning, you need to focus on a specific niche. As time goes on, you can go more and more broad for sure, and you can start trying to help more and more people. But at the beginning stages, you've got to focus on a small subsection of the market. Mm-hmm. So there's essentially like a few ways in which you can do this. So firstly, you have to pick your industry. So something which people who are listening to this could do, maybe your industry could be motherhood, parenthood, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then you essentially, that's the industry. Then you want to pick a niche. So which niche within the world of parenthood could you go for? So what would you say yours is?
I mean, mine is helping mothers through productivity, organization, helping them implement systems to make their lives easier. So,
okay, awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So you're basically like simplifying motherhood, essentially. Mm-hmm. So that would be like your niche. And then with that, a sub niche is that you're simplifying motherhood through, I don't know, productivity, mm-hmm. essentially. Mm-hmm. So you've really you've narrowed it down to like a very specific outcome that you're helping people achieve. So that's like essentially what I kind of call is like horizontal specialization, right? Yeah. But then if you want to like go vertical, you basically pick a particular problem that those people within that sub niche are facing. So obviously these mums who want to become productive, what is like their biggest problem that they're struggling with right now?
So a lot of them, and I get this all the time, it's like juggling all the things, right? So juggling wife life and motherhood and finding their own personal, I call it mommy time, finding time for themselves. So mommy time, that's probably number one, the hands down number one thing that I get from all the moms is just juggling all the things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly it. So basically your, I guess, like niche is pretty much like you need to become more productive so that you can juggle all the things and still have time for yourself.
Yep.
To live your life and enjoy your life.
Yep.
So that's basically that's essentially the process that I use in order to help people niche down. And the cool thing is like, it's not static. It's something that evolves as time goes on. So at the beginning, when you were first starting, like you were like, oh, I'm going to help mums, but you never would have known that their biggest struggle is juggling all the things until you started gathering feedback from them.
Yes, exactly.
And the feedback can only come when you have the audience, but at the beginning you don't have the audience.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, at the beginning, it's like a bit of a double-edged sword because you can't start because you don't have any feedback to start with, but you have to start in order to get moving.
Yeah.
So I really think it just comes down to picking an industry, and then within that industry just picking a niche and being pretty like you're focusing on the problems that look, let's be honest, the most common ideal client for you or ideal follower or niche or whatever to choose is you just a few months or years ago.
Exactly. I was going to say that, a lot of the women ask me, they're like, well, when I'm starting a business, like, how do I know who to help? And I'm like, what have you solved? Like, what problem have you overcome yourself? Because you know how to do it. You know the steps that you took. You know how you overcame that problem. So you can share that, right? So like, how did you do that? Where were you and where are you now? And like, what is the juicy stuff in between?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's it. And then because getting from A to B, you essentially can create systems and processes. And I think I literally just posted it on my Instagram story just earlier. I might get this wrong, but I'm all about systems like you.
Yes,
and so it's like systems essentially like, it's obviously SYSTEMS. It's like save yourself time, energy, and money. If you write it down,
I love it.
yeah, it kind of works. So then you can essentially market your systems to help save people time, energy, and money, because that's why people are going to buy things, because they want those three things that we need as humans. And so yeah, I mean, I think it really just comes down to that. And I think it's just like being confident with it. So often people are super wishy-washy. They're afraid to be polarizing. But
or in the mom world, it's all about like mom shaming. Like, oh my God, you gave your kid this versus that. And it's like, listen, we're all figuring it out. Like, you do you be the best mom you can be, and this mom's going to be the best mom she can be. But if we can help each other somewhere in the middle, like, that's the juicy spot. But otherwise, like, share what works for you. But like, each mom, just stay in your own lane.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's it. And I think it's just hilarious because obviously I started out in the fitness industry, and now that I'm kind of focusing just on more broad entrepreneurship in general, it's just fascinating because I go on all these different podcasts ranging from like real estate to obviously like we're speaking about mums here. Sure. And every single niche and industry are the same. There are these core like opposite beliefs that people fight over. It's literally like people get attached to things like religion. And then they shoot each other down if they don't agree with what they're saying. But here's the thing, right? If you want to be taken seriously as a business owner, as someone building your brand, literally just share value, back it up with studies, back it up with personal stories, and just don't knock people down. There's enough success in this world for everybody. Totally. And so if you can honestly just focus on adding value and, as you said, staying in your lane, oh my gosh, you are going to be taken so seriously by everyone, and they're going to love what you do because they're going to see that you aren't one of these crazy like people that tells you there's only one way to do things.
Yes. And I love that you said that, because it's like, that's with everything, right? Like for the woman, like what you were saying in your industry, right? With weight loss, you can lift weights, you can do cardio, you can do intermittent fasting, you can do eating every 2 hours. It all works, right? But like, you have to work and you have to find what works for you. It's the same thing with literally everything. Like, everything works, but you have to find what works for you and what you're going to stick with and be consistent with.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing is that I think if you're open-minded and if you actually consume other people's content as well, then you can get new ideas for yourself too.
And in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I think that that's something that's really important to remember, because again, back when I was focusing on fitness industry and being a fitness coach, at the beginning, I was not open-minded at all. And I would see people talking about like veganism, and I'd see them talking about, I don't know, certain different ways of training. And I'd be like, no, it's not evidence-based and science-based and backed by science, so it can't be right. And then you have to think like, yeah, people do things, like it makes sense to do things because of logic, but that's not how people act. People take action because of their emotions. They don't take action because it makes logical, scientific sense. So it's really important to bear in mind, again, the emotions of the end consumer, because that's really going to be what causes them to actually take action. And so connecting with your audience on a deep level is fundamental. I mean, one concept that people can take away from this podcast episode to implement immediately is it's to do with storytelling, actually. Now, I know storytelling is often seen as kind of like a soft skill. And again, I used to think, oh, storytelling, like there's no point in learning how to do storytelling because all I want to learn about is sales and marketing, because that's what's going to help me make money and all this stuff. But actually, storytelling is so valuable, even though it may remind you of being in creative writing class back when you were at school. So you've obviously, as we've mentioned, got from A to B, from where you were before to where you are now. Now, there's a story in between that, and I like to kind of label them as like macro stories, right? So it's really important for you to come up with 2 to 3 macro stories. And when I say macro stories, these are essentially big, pivotal stories that you've been through and that you can share over and over again. Mm-hmm. So is there one for you that kind of springs to front of mind that you can share?
Oh, totally. And I've shared this, few times, but so for me, I tell the story about how before I became a mom, like I did all the things. I did the courses, I did the classes, I did the books, and to prepare for motherhood. And I had an all natural birth, and like that went nothing according to plan. Like it totally just went haywire.
No, don't tell me this, because I was talking to someone the other day about natural births and things like that, and I was like getting worried. But
well, I did go, and because all the moms are here, I feel comfortable sharing this, but we so I did go all natural, did pretty much went very, very fast in the progression of my labor. And then when it was time to get pushing, did it for about 3 hours, which is they're normally when you push, it's ready, the baby will come with very soon after you start pushing. I did 3 hours, which was insane. It was the hardest workout of my entire life.
I was about to say that. Yeah, you got some good exercise.
Yes, amazing. I was sore for probably 2 weeks afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
But so with that, I ended up having to have a C-section because the cord was wrapped around his foot. It was just circumstance. It wasn't because of that's not going to happen to everybody. Circumstance, yeah. Right? So 5 days after I gave birth, we had to evacuate our home. There was a hurricane coming. It was Hurricane Irma, and my parents were in town. My in-laws were here. We had no way out. It was literally everyone was evacuating town. You could either drive. All the flights were taken. Thank God, just out of the grace of connections and God, we were able to get out of town. So we get out of town. I'm with my family, my in-laws, my parents, my husband was there for much longer than he would have been if he had to go back to work and there was no hurricane. So I had the support of my family. The next day, after we got home, came home from the evacuation and whatnot, my husband goes back to work. I had this total meltdown. And I shared this in one of my podcast episodes where I was oh my God, this is so real now. You're home now with your baby and you're all alone. There's nobody else there. And you're I have to figure this out. And it was such a surreal moment for me because I was now I'm in it. There's no turning back and I got to figure it out one way or another. And that was the day I gave birth to my program, which is called the Magic Mom Morning. And it was me essentially putting small wins, small steps in place every single day in order to feel productive, get things done, and then essentially get the bigger things done, the bigger goals, tackle those. But it was small things like getting up, taking a shower, making the bed, putting on makeup, and not all of those at once, literally one small step a day in order to create the big successes and wins, throughout over time.
Yeah, that's amazing. That actually just gave me goosebumps, and that is exactly what I mean. I was genuinely so captivated in that story right then, and I felt like I was there. And that's exactly how it should be when you're sharing these macro stories. Yeah. Because now people are gonna remember that, and they're gonna associate that with you. And this is what's so powerful with having these macro stories. So that's obviously one of yours. I recommend people have 2 to 3 because then you can pull the ones out that are the most critical at that moment of time. So for me, one of the ones that I mentioned earlier, starting my Instagram. Another one is quitting my my job at my asset management company. And another one for me could be dropping out of uni, because then I can basically pick and choose the ones which are the most relevant for that audience, that particular time.
Exactly.
The cool thing is more come as time goes on. So let's just say suddenly I decided, because recently I've been playing around with messenger bots, right? And they're working really, really well for me. So I could suddenly decide in a year from now that there was a pivotal moment when I realized that email marketing doesn't work anymore, and that messenger bots are the future, because then within 2 weeks I was able to generate 1,000 leads with $0 of paid traffic. That's a true story, right? And that's something that I could use in the future if I suddenly wanted to turn my business into messenger bot business.
Definitely.
So, it's something that anyone can do that. Everyone has stories to share.
And every moment could be an opportunity for that, pivotal moment. For me, when we moved to our home that we're in now. We moved 3 weeks ago. The day of the move, it ended up I had to take the dog to the vet because it was just like he took him to the groomer. She like had cut him all up over his body, which was like, he's my baby too, right? And like, so the day of the move, also I bathed Jake, like our son, in this shampoo that he normally doesn't use. He broke out in hives. The dog had to go to the vet. The painter didn't show up. Like all of these things happened. And I was like, this is why I said in the beginning of the podcast, like motherhood is so much about figuring it all out, but then having nothing figured out and putting humor into the situation, because on such a crazy day, when you're like, a moving day is crazy already to begin with. And then to add all these other things that just totally went wrong. I got my period. Like it was just, it was so, I was like, you know what, just laugh, because if anything else happens, like you either have a meltdown or you laugh. Pick which one, pick what direction you want to go in.
Exactly. No, but the cool thing is as well with that story is like, you obviously were then able to laugh, but then what you can tell people is like, I'm able to laugh because I have my mama morning routine. So then you can turn that into like a way in which you can wrap the whole thing around your product. And so it just works really, really well. And so it's something, as I said, anyone can do it. And people can essentially then transport into that narrative, and they can connect with the story. And that's exactly what people need to do when it comes to building a brand, growing on social media, and doing all of that.
So what about the mom that's like, is at nothing right now, no followers, she's just starting off? What would be a good like 3 steps for her to get started building her brand?
Yeah, great question. So the first step has to be focusing on who are the people going to be, right? And what are the problems that you're going to help them overcome. And then honestly, I think it comes down to next figuring out which platforms to use. So often people kind of jump to Instagram. I'm going to grow on Insta, or maybe even Facebook. Like I do find that, well, for I guess maybe some of the mums listening to this right now are probably a bit younger. So maybe, I don't know, like what would you say most current moms right now are on? Instagram?
I think Instagram, I mean, because the demographic of a lot of moms that I work with is between about 26 and 35.
Oh, okay, right. So pretty young. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's like going to be Instagram, because obviously when I think about like my mom, she's on Facebook and she's obsessed with Facebook, but she's not quite on Instagram.
Yeah, so I think it's Instagram.
But at the same time, it doesn't really depend on what platforms you want to be on. It depends on the platforms of where your ideal client is at.
Exactly.
So obviously for you, you know that your ideal client is on Instagram. So Instagram is great for you to use. For me personally, my ideal clients are typically between the ages of like 20 years old to probably like 30, maybe like 35. I'd say it's kind of like between 20 to 30 mainly. They are typically on Instagram and watching YouTube videos. So I know that's like I should be actually focusing on YouTube a lot, but they also listen to podcasts because they're trying to build a business. So for me, I basically cover all of them. And because I have a team, I can do that, right? But at the beginning, I did not focus on all the platforms because that's just exhausting and
impossible. Especially, I tell my moms,
kids, and you've got
exactly. For me, like I structure my days. Like when we were texting this morning, I was like, I'm working out right now. Like my workouts are in the morning. I work then from about 9:30, 10 o'clock until about 2:33. And then from 3 o'clock or 2:30 on until when Jake goes down, I'm in mom mode. We're going to play gyms and we're going to the park and we're doing dinner time and bath time and bedtime. So it's like my day is segmented. And now, of course, if something pops up, I give attention to whatever needs the attention at the moment. But for the most part, my days are structured where it's like I get up, I work out, I do my business, my work, and then it's like full on mommy mode, Jakey time.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that that's super, super important. And like, you don't have all the time in the world, especially when you're a mom. So I do think, however, that it's really important to make sure that you have either a podcast or a YouTube, because I really think that showing up on video or audio is really, really critical, because it allows people to get to know you on that deeper level. Like if you were to try and share all those stories with your audience that you've shared with them today, like on Instagram, that would just not be possible. I think actually, interestingly enough, I do think as time goes on, podcasts are really, really going to be growing, just because like people are getting busier and they just want something to put on as they walk it in their pocket. So I mean, it depends where your audience is, but just like figure out which one's going to be best, and then just think, okay, which 3 problems are these people facing right now? And then what solution could I create to those problems? And then that essentially becomes your content. Now, if you can't think of content ideas at this beginning stage, I think really just like think what would have helped you. And then maybe you can, I think if you're really struggling like at the very beginning with content ideas, like there's some sort of mismatch between you and your niche there, because you really should understand your niche well enough to think of some content ideas. If you're still struggling, like just go look at some people who are in a position where you'd like to be, see what type of content they're posting, put your own spin on it. Or you can go on things like keywordtool.io, which is a website where you can type in keywords to get ideas for content. There are so many of these, like many.
Or even just ask like your friends and family, like, what do they come to you for that you're just not getting paid for right now? What do they come to you for that you're constantly giving tips on or you're giving advice on, and it may be something that you haven't even thought of because it's so natural to you that you just do it and you think it's second nature, but to somebody else, I mean, they would pay for that.
Yeah, people really undervalue what they've done and what they can do when they are where they are at, because it seems so obvious to them. But I also think like at the same time, when you're first starting out, I don't think you should rush into monetizing, because I actually see this a lot where people start on social media and they're like, right, well, it's time to launch a product, and then they try to launch all these different things. And I literally just recorded a podcast about this actually, and I call it like SOS because it stands for like shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
Like, from one thing to the next, Instead, just like build up relationships, build up trust, make sure that you're adding value. And every single time you post to social media, ask yourself this one question: what value is this adding to my target audience? And if it's not adding value, then really just, I think it's best probably not to post it. I'd say like kind of 80-20 principle. Maybe like 20% of your posts can be kind of like personal, just a bit goofy, but 80% of them you want to focus on adding that value, because that's going to really be what attracts people to you. And you can add value through storytelling. It doesn't have to always be like 3 tips to do this, this, and this. Like, it doesn't have to be that. So yeah, I mean, if I was just starting out right now, I honestly would be making sure that I'm focusing a lot of effort on either the podcast or the YouTube, making sure that I'm creating like searchable content, and that I'm actually focusing on distributing the content, that I'm being proud of what I'm putting out and like telling everyone about it, and that I'm focusing on building either an email list or a messenger bot list, so that it's actually something that you own. But obviously, like, that all sounds like pretty overwhelming right now to someone who's just starting. I really think it does come down to honestly just posting content every day. And in order to consistency every day, you can batch create content. So if you want to make some podcasts, record like 4 in a day, and then that means you can upload 1 per month. And then you're good. You could take like 7 Instagram photos in 1 day and just like go on, get your partner to go out on a photo shoot with you. Take like 7 photos in 1 day, bring a jacket, bring like a change of skirt or something. And that's what you can do. And then like just write your Instagram captions when you're passively watching TV in the evening, and you'll be good.
I love it. There's so much juicy content in here. And I feel like, all the mamas, this is such great information for them, because they do want this. They want to know how to do it right, but they also want to bring value as well. So all of this information is so, so helpful. So where can the mamas connect with you? And then if there's anything that you'd like to share that you have coming out, I'd love for you to share as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I am literally on like all the social media. But again, it didn't start that way, and don't feel like you need to start that way. Obviously, this is a podcast, so I do have my own podcast, which is just called Impact School. But then on Instagram at Lauren Tickner, LaurenTickner. I love it when I go on someone's podcast and then the listeners like take a screenshot of what they're listening on right now, tag the both of us, and then just like write what the biggest takeaway was.
Love that.
It's really cool when you do that, because then obviously like the people who are following you gain value. And like if you're someone who's trying to build a brand, sharing value is key, and we've shared value here. So if you share the value that we've shared with your then that's value, right?
Oh yeah, all the sharing, all the love.
Exactly. And I'll repost it and send you a voice note back, and it's always fun.
I love it. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for being here. And, as Lauren said, make sure you tag us, let us know the value that you got out of the podcast today, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Yay.